Hey everyone, the Still Got It podcast is brought to you by Sutton Basketball Academy, where the next generation of hoopers are made. Whether you're just picking up a ball for the first time or chasing a college scholarship, our year-round academy trains boys and girls ages 5 through 18 to become peak performers both on and off the court. At Sutton Basketball Academy, it's bigger than the game. We build skills, confidence, and character that will last a lifetime. Learn more at SuttonBasketballAcademy.com. Hey everyone, welcome to the Still Got It podcast, where we sit down with former college hoopers to relive their journey, from playground dreams to big-time college moments and beyond. Each episode, we dig into players' early days in the game, the recruiting process, that first taste of life in college, and the highs and lows of their playing career. We'll also look at what came after the final buzzer, life beyond basketball, and where the game has taken them since. I'm your host, Nick Sutton, and this is Still Got It. Real stories, honest reflections, and a deeper look at the game beyond the box score. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, be sure to like and subscribe.
And it seems like coming off the high of a national championship, I mean, it's no better way to end a season, obviously, but it would seem kind of logical that Jay Will, Dunleavy, Boozer, even yourself would think about going pro, but you guys all decided to return. How close were you close to leaving? Were the other guys close to leaving as well?
Yeah. No, so I wasn't. I thought, Jay was going to leave. Out of all of them, I thought Jay, because, I think he was predicted, like 1, 2, or 3.
And he won national player. He was player of the year that year. Sophomore.
Yeah, well,
right?
him and Shane won a couple of them together.
They split.
Yeah, they split a couple of them. So, and just, from locker room talks, like, if you're top 5, it's kind of like, if I was top 5, I was gone. Like, I'm not coming back. So, we kind of thought about that, or I thought he was going to go. So that was kind of my thought process, of that. And then, but he decided to come back, and, we're now bringing in Dante Jones, who was, redshirted. So, he helped us enormously, in preparation for every game, because he was, with his versatility, his strength, he could play a 4-man for us. He could play a guard. So, like, whoever the best player was on the other team, that's who Dante was. So he got better because he got to, do multiple positions and was asked to do a lot of different things for us. So, bringing him in, bringing in Daniel, us, planning on having a big summer. So, in case he's going to get better, guys that were hurt, like Nick Horvat. So, we're going in expecting a repeat. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, and then that season, in a game that haunts a lot of Duke fans, especially Vivek, apparently.
That's true. I still think about it, Chris.
You guys end up having to play against Indiana in Rupp Arena. You're up 17 at one point, but they come back and take the lead. A Will goes to the line for a chance at a 4-point play, misses a free throw. Boozer misses a putback. It was a pretty shocking defeat. Talk us through those immediate moments after the final buzzer of what had to be a gut-wrenching loss.
Yeah. Obviously disappointed. Till this day, we're way better than that team. We were handling them pretty easily. And then, they went to a zone, which is, for our team, we should be zone killers, with the shooting that we've had. But for whatever reason, it disrupted, our flow. It got us to kind of play slower, because we were a up-tempo type team. So it kind of put us back on our heels. They did a great job and then they out-physicaled us. They were, offensive rebounds in the paint, with Jared Jeffries and those guys that they had there. They, at some point they just showed that they wanted it more, than we did. And then, even with that, we still had our opportunities, with Jay getting fouled and, making the 3, and then Boozer getting the rebound, and then, missing a layup, foul or not foul. But, again, just, we make no excuses. We got to go up stronger. We had an opportunity to do that, but we wasn't deserving to win. They were deserving to win. And, that whole year was completely different than the year before, because I think there were more outside agendas than there were us winning a national championship. Obviously we wanted to win, and we had the talent to win. But it was kind of like, you wanted to do it your way. All right. So it wasn't like anything malicious, but, I don't think everyone like that. My first year, everyone was locked solid and this is it. It doesn't matter how we do it. We're going to win. To where that following year it was, you know, I got to keep my position in the draft. Am I going to go in the draft? I got to put up these type of numbers. I'm not blaming it on anybody. I'm including myself, with that as well. So as far as being like a team going for one goal, I don't think the intensity and the attention to detail was where that team needed to be able to do, especially coming off of winning. So knowing that other teams are going to play, you know, even tougher against you because you are quote unquote, defending national champions. So, uh, that year it was kind of like a wasted opportunity because of the talent that we had, that we didn't really go all in as on the team aspect of it.
Interesting. Well, then the following year, your junior year, is when JJ Redick and Sheldon Williams are freshmen. And when Redick shows up on campus as a freshman, I assume he already carried himself like a guy who thought he could hang with anybody, which, to be fair, he could. Was there a moment in practice or a game where you thought, okay, yeah, this kid's pretty legit?
Yeah, I mean, I think more the second year. Freshman year is a little cocky and all that, which is fine. We like that, and we needed that, and he fed off of that. But there was still more that he had to understand of what the ACC was like during that time, and then like when we got played bigger teams and things like. So there was a learning curve for that. Um, and then, sophomore year, obviously he got better and things like that. But I think that junior year, he had a great year, but, as you saw towards the end, he started to wear down because then he started becoming a focal point, and now you're not the third best defender's not guarding you. Now it's the first best defender's guarding you. And now you have to really pay attention to detail to get open because you were getting away with earlier, you're not getting away with. And then are you in the shape to do that through late in the ACC come tournament time, or are you tired and now your shots are a little bit short, or, now you're a little bit more, you're inconsistent because now your legs are not fresh on a back-to-back during the ACC tournament type things. Those are things I think every freshman go through and everyone has to learn. But, you knew he was confident in himself and that he had the opportunity and ended up becoming, one of the greatest players that played that dude.
Totally. So now bring us to your final game in Cameron. It's the UNC, versus UNC, packed house, electric atmosphere, one last time in front of the home crowd. When you look back, is there one moment that kind of lives rent free in your mind? Is maybe it's a huddle or a sound of the crowd, or the iconic hug with Coach K, anything like that?
Well, I mean, for me, it was like we were about to go out for warm ups. Like, I guess soon as like I heard that last, the band plays the thing before we run out. I got really emotional, so I had to go back. So I didn't even run out with the team. Like I had to go back.
Really?
Kind of get myself together. That's kind of when it hit me. Like this is the last time we'll be in Cameron hearing the band. Woo, woo, before we run out. So, that was kind of the thing I remembered the most was that that's kind of when it really sunk in that it was. That was just the last time I was going to hear that, as a player coming out in Cameron, to that. So, but, again, being able to play Carolina and, come out with a win, that's always a great way to end your career in Cameron as well, too.
Totally. Well, so that season unfortunately ended with a Final Four loss versus UConn, Emeka Okafor and others. So they were a loaded team as well. Does the loss versus Indiana your sophomore year or the loss versus UConn your senior year kind of sting more as you look back?
Man, that's a great question. Um, I would probably say the senior year, just because as a team from the team perspective, uh, like we were deserving to give ourselves the opportunity to win. Like guys,
Mm-hmm.
we made the sacrifices and grew up throughout their year and things like that. Like so, we were deserving. I don't believe, like looking back, I don't believe that we were deserving my sophomore
Even
year.
though maybe the talent level of sophomore year
Yeah,
could have
like
been
I
a
think the
little bit
talent
better.
level was better, but
Yeah.
what we were collectively as a team was not. And then yeah, the senior year. I mean, as far as team, that UConn team is one of the the best teams assembled. So you got to give them all the credit. It was funny. Ben Gordon was. We were drafted to the Bulls together, so
Yep.
we always talked about it. We were going back and forth, and it was always like, we played 10 games. We win 6-4. In that you could tell that there was respect on both ends of how good both teams were. That one hurts just because of you're in the Final Four. In my head, my belief was that that was the national championship game. Whoever won that, both teams, either team is smacking the next two teams. Georgia Tech, I think it was like Oklahoma State or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
It
that
was
was
OK State.
yeah, I think that was the national championship team. So I know you're not supposed to look ahead or anything like that, but we believe that whoever won that game was going to be the national champions, and I think that's kind of why it hurts a little bit more just knowing that you're one step away from being able to hoist that trophy up again.
Yep. So now your college career is over. Put a bookend on that. And you come to draft night in 2004. And like you just touched on, the Bulls added Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, and you in one of the most productive classes in franchise history. Was there a moment early on, maybe a practice or a matchup that showed you just how big the leap was from college to the pros?
Well, I mean, it was like first preseason game. You you realize the speed of the game. Even though you do it in practice and you had summer league, but summer league is just a higher glorified college game. Basically that's kind of how I felt. Also felt with us being at Duke and then how the ACC was really really good that year with a lot of the teams being really good. I faced the top of college before, so it wasn't nothing that was very different. But then preseason, like man, everybody can run fast. Everyone's these passing lanes, they close up quicker than what they used to. So
Yeah.
that adjustment period, during the preseason, you kind of realize that the game's a little bit different. The game's faster, so that you have to think the game faster, to be able to kind of compete, unless you're this unbelievable athlete. But yeah, so during that preseason game, yeah, the preseason, that's kind of when I realized this is a little different.
Yeah. And so you ended up playing with a 10-year career, 4 different teams, Chicago, New York, Orlando, and the Lakers. You had a 34-point explosion with Chicago and also a 22-assist masterpiece with the Knicks, which still to this day is the single game assist record for the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those games did you feel kind of more in the zone for?
Well, I mean, probably the 34 because it was, Ben was hurt during that game. Kirk was out, so like, I think we're on TNT. Family gets to watch. I think Luol might have been out as well too. So
Oh, wow.
one, I mean, I knew I was going to play a lot of minutes because we just didn't have enough guys to suit up. And then I think, people thought we were going to get blown out because there was a lot of our main starters that were out. I remember like kind of that first shot went in and I was like, oh man, yeah, kind of that one felt kind of good. And then, it just, the next one went in and I kind of got a floater. And because I think I probably had like 22 at the half, something like that. It was kind of like, all right, this could be, a big night. But then it was also like, I don't have a sub, so I'm probably playing 48 minutes. It was kind of like, all right, and I'm guarding Darren Davis on the other side too. So,
Oh God, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, all right, how can I, how can we maintain that? But I just, it was just one of those days where everything I threw up kind of went in. The Knicks game was also special. That was, I think, during the Thanksgiving holidays. A lot of my family was in town for that. But that one was just, at the time, two bad teams that didn't play defense, just kind of going up and down. And, I was fortunate that, we were hot enough for, guys to make plays and be able to do that and get the win as well.
Nice. Well, then you go to Orlando, which is like peak Dwight Howard era, feeding him lob after lob. So at his best, where would you rank Dwight among the players that you've shared the floor with?
What is best? 2.
2?
Yeah.
Kobe's number 1.
Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah, of course. But at that point, obviously it's an older Kobe, but Dwight in Orlando, I think he is disrespected a lot and people understand how good he was.
He was an absolute monster.
Man, especially defensively, like his way to be able to guard the pick and roll and still protect the rim. He was different.
Yeah, he was. And then touching on Kobe to kind of close out your pro career, you finish out with the Lakers alongside Kobe. Everyone has a Mamba moment.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours?
I think it kind of went viral at one time, but I made a bet with him on the plane. We were, one of the great things and one of the things I love. Kobe's a student of the game, like wants to know what's going on, always knows what's going on, that type of thing. So I was sitting next to him on the plane from a away game, and after every game, you get the stats from the league. So you can, see what everyone did, what the score was, get the box score, all that. And we looked at it, and LeBron, I think, had like his third triple-double in like 4 games. So he's like, whoa, LeBron, with the stoic face, LeBron, another triple-double. And, I was like, man, you're not going to ever get a triple-double because you don't pass. So he starts laughing and he's like, all right, I'll make you a bet. I'll bet you $5,000 that I get a triple double, the next game. And I was like, all right, bet. I'm like, I'm good. So next game we're at home, and literally, I think he was like 1 assist and 2 rebounds shy at halftime. And like the whole time he's like winking at me the whole time. So we after the game, we were talking, and he was just like, he said, I could do that every game if I want. He was like, I can get a triple double every game I want. He was just like, that's just not what I believe my team needs me to do. And but in my mentality and my domination of the game is to make other teams and players fear me. And that was his mentality. And I was like, I get it. And then, he was just saying everybody else's role is different for their team. He's like, but his belief, what was going to make him the most valuable for the Lakers was to strike fear into everybody else, knowing that he can get 60 at any time, and was wanting to and trying to get 60, every single night. And so it was very, very interesting to hear from his perspective and kind of understand that. And, that's why I like when, I hear these debates and, who's the best, LeBron or Jordan or, Kobe or whatever. And, they bring up the, LeBron's unselfishness. I always say like, hey, look, all 3, I don't care where you rank them, doesn't matter to me. But, when you've seen it, Jordan and Kobe, like those guys can see the floor just as well as LeBron. Mm-hmm. Like they can make those passes just like LeBron can. They can choose to go out and try to get 15 assists, just like, you see these guys today doing. Like, that's just not what they wanted to do. Like, they wanted to dominate the game and put fear in people's heart. Every time they stepped on the court, having you afraid that you were playing them was more important than them getting 10 assists. So I was like those guys can pass now. Like, don't act like LeBron is just making these passes that these guys couldn't do. They just chose that what was best for their team was to go out and get 40 and, and do it and talk trash and let you know that they're going to get 40. So, but it was great to hear his perspective. That was kind of my Mamba moment. I mean, he had so many that year. But, one thing I would say that I've never been around anyone that worked harder and was dedicated to his craft like he was, in all phases of it. So, I was able to see what greatness looked like, what it took to be great. And, now as a high school coach, that's, kind of my message. Like, it's a lot to be great. There's a lot of sacrifices you have to make. And, if you want to do it, like I've seen one of the greats do it. And I know that how much of a commitment it is into, being great. So, but it was an honor to be able to witness that.
That's what amazing insight. That's a great story. Wow. Well, and a good segue to now you've stepped away from playing, obviously, and you've moved into coaching. You were at Marshall, Illinois State, and now you're the head coach at Gaston Christian, if I'm saying that correctly. What pulled you toward teaching the game versus any other kind of profession that you could have been centered around the game of basketball?
Yeah, throughout the NBA does a great job, or the NBPA does a great job of like trying to help guys transition, from after playing to playing, and they do it throughout your career. So it's not like something that happens like, all right, I'm done. What do you have? Like, if you want to take advantage of those opportunities while you're playing, you can. So I did the broadcasting thing and things like that. So after that year with, the Lakers, I was kind of like, what I'm going to do? Am I going to go play overseas? Things like that. I kind of was up in the air what I wanted to do. But then at the time, my wife was pregnant with the twins. So I knew if I went played overseas, I wouldn't be there, for their birth and things like that. So still contemplating, what I was going to do. And then Dan D'Antoni, I was eating lunch and saw under the ticker Dan D'Antoni got the head coaching job at Marshall. And, Dan's Mike's brother, and he was with me in New York and in LA. And Dan and I became really, really, really close. So I literally just shot him a text message like, hey, congrats on the job. Cause I knew they went to Marshall and like him being able to go home and coach for his team. And, he was like, all right, I need you to come with me. And, I'm like, yeah, whatever. He calls. He's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I need you to come coach with me. And so that was kind of the first time, I guess, like I really was like, oh, I guess coaching can be, something I could do. It wasn't
a well thought out plan.
So I was like, so I was like, all right, I can check it out. And, they flew me out there and he kind of told me what he wanted to do. And I was like, this keeps me home closer to the kids and keeps me around the game. So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try. So that's kind of how that happened. And then it kind of went on from there. Like, it was a great learning experience for me. I definitely was not ready to be a coach at that time. And, I was not giving the full responsibilities as a coach as well. I think we both were learning the difference of what you need to do in the NBA and what you need to do in college. Because, when you get to the college level, and especially now even the high school, like you have to talk to even these 5-star kids and like this their first time playing basketball. Like you can't assume what you feel is elementary that they understand what that meant. And that was kind of like something we struggle with, where it's like, no, you do this on the road because the guy does this. And they're like, huh? And it was like no one ever taught you that? And you're like,
Right.
no. And it's like, no, we got to like really go back to the basics just with like terminology.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that for me. And then also was like, I'm still young, I'm still in shape. So, I wasn't a coach. I was like one of the boys. And I was like, hey, let's go. Let's check up. You can't beat me one-on-one. Like, let's check up. Oh, hey, we playing fives today. Like, so it became more of, workout summer training session for me than it was actually, no, you're supposed to be mentoring and getting them ready and stuff like that. So it was a great learning experience for me. Um, at that point, and then, going to Illinois State, kind of the same thing. Now with someone different that required more of you. So that's kind of how I learned about more of the college scene, recruiting, um, you know, uh, giving more responsibilities, being a mentor. And then I went to Bryant for a year as well, and got to uh, see it again, see how you prepare. Now you're different with, different type of kids there, talented kids, but then, may have, little rough edges, things like that, but, trying to get them to buy in, and things like that. So all three experience, was really, really good for me. And then, kind of got to coach high school kind of by accident as well. My wife is, she has her PhD in math. And when we moved to Marshall, she was a math professor at Marshall. She went to NC State and then did her undergrad at NYU and got a doctorate at Columbia. And then, so we're in West Virginia. I love West Virginia and did think I would be there for, I think we ended up staying there for like 8 years, 9 years. And, when I went to Illinois State, like she didn't come with. When I went to Bryant, she didn't come with. Being away from the kids and things like that. And, it just got to a point where I was just like, all right, look, like it's like your turn. Like, let's focus on your career, like, what you want to do, where you want to live. We've always wanted to get back to North Carolina, to kind of make home. So she got a job at Davidson. It was like, all right, we're going. Like, I'm going to kind of put this college thing to bed. Or if I get something, in the state of North Carolina that's close, but I'll figure it out. But I have an older son that's at the time going in 8th grade. And then, the following year he's going to high school and, I get a call about, my mom needs someone that worked at the school and he asked if I would be interested in coaching high school. And, I never really thought about it. But then, my son was like, oh, I want to play for you. So I was like, all right, the opportunity to, kind of coach your son and, things like that. So, kind of took it and, kind of fell in love with it, just kind of fall in love with the process and the grind of it and, being able to, uh, because I'm now more mature now to be able to nurture these kids and to, developing, them on and off the court. I think, with my stories and the things I've been through, I give them an opportunity to see the highs and lows, of everything and what they're going to experience. And, just talking a lot about, your ability to bounce back. Like you're going to fail. Things are not going to go your way. Like you have a choice, what I mean? Like, you can either feel sorry for yourself or figure it out. And that kind of goes back to, how I grew up, right? Playing at the parks and, guys bigger than you, faster than you, you'll need to stop going to the park and play or figure it out. So it's kind of full circle, coming back for me.
Another great segue is I was about to ask about your son, who's a rising prospect, and what's the best advice that you give him about balancing like exposure and pressure and passion and some of those qualities in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, with him, I just kind of like, you got to run your own race. I think we're in an era where with, social media and everything like that, everyone's comparing, themselves to the next person. And, it's like, you can't worry about what this person's doing, what this person, you got to focus on yourself. That's kind of what's been my message to him. And then, from the start, it was kind of like, because he kind of was like a late bloomer as far as really understanding the work you have to put outside of practice. So in middle school, we like, because of, my name, it comes with people automatically thinking that, you're really good, at basketball. And he was just learning. But, you know, middle schoolers are rough, kids are rough, things like that. So it was really hurting him that, guys were starting to pass him up or he wasn't playing as much and things like that. And I told him that you got to work harder afterwards. Like you can't just think practice is enough time for you to get better at these things. Like, this is something that you want to do. And I made it clear that this has to be your dream, not my dream. I was like, I already lived out my dream. I was like, this has to be your dream. I can't want it more than you. So then he decided to do that. He was like, Dad, can we go extra and work out? And I was like, all right, this is my only stipulation. It has to be early in the morning. I said, I'm not setting an alarm. You have to come in there and wake me up every day. I said, if you don't come wake me up, then we're not going. And, that was just kind of if you want it, you're going to make that sacrifice. You're going to wake up, you're going to make sure I'm up, and then we're going to go. And, now that's kind of become our thing. Now he's waiting for me in the car. It's like, hey, he's honking the horn, like, hey, you coming? Let's go. Right. So, but I appreciate it because it's his thing now. This is his journey. He wants it. He's been putting in the work. And so now just telling him, hey, run your race. Like, my success came early. Yours may not come as early as mine, but that should not give you a reason to doubt yourself, doubt the work that you're putting in. Just continue to keep working, continue to keep grinding, continue to keep figuring it out. And, that's kind of what he's been doing. So just been very proud of him on that.
That's awesome. That's great advice. All right. So we're coming to the end. We got our 3 recurring questions. The first of which is our Cameron Confessionals, where we ask our guests to take us inside the walls of Cameron Indoor. So what's a story that you feel comfortable sharing, whether it's one of those locker room laughs or humiliating consequence or a hidden memory that only the brotherhood knows?
Oh, yeah, man. There's a lot. Man, I think one of the funniest ones for me, it didn't happen to me. I had my story, but mine wasn't as funny as Dante's. Coach K, if you play at Duke long enough, you're going to have a film session that is just strictly about you. He talks about how you walk, how you dress, how you tie your shoe. Has nothing to do, didn't have nothing to do with basketball, but he's just making a point that he is not very pleased with you right now. And he's going to make sure that everyone knows that he's not very pleased with you right now. So one of the funniest ones was Dante. This is my sophomore year. Dante, Dante's super athletic and things like that. Well, Dante would catch the ball and then hold the ball behind his back, palming it like every time he was on the wing. It drove Coach K crazy. And I think one of the times he turned it over. So watching film, he literally pauses it on that. Just, that's when you have the little red laser and he's circling on Dante, what is this? What is this? It's like, who the fuck you think you are? Kobe Bryant? You ain't fucking Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant would kick your fucking ass. He's like, you're over there palming the ball, being lackadaisical with the ball. And he's just killing Dante, right? And it's one of those things where you're sitting in the locker room and I'm sitting next to Daniel Ewing, just squeezing his D right now because we can't laugh or anything like that. All right. So he's just going off. And then he's like, look at this. You wearing NBA socks. He said, you better change those motherfuckers to France or NBDL because that's where the fuck you're going. It was for me at that time, I was like, oh, I've heard the worst already. But, if you're going to be, especially if he's a player that he believes that will make it at the next level, you're going to have your come to Jesus moment with him where, there's nothing you can do right.
Yeah. Well, and it's hilarious now, but like you said, in that moment, it's you do not say a single word. You don't make a sound, like, or else you're going to be next.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good story. All right. So the late great Barbara Walters used to close her interviews often by asking, "What is the philosophy or philosophies by which you live your life?"
Oh man, I mean, I think mine has gone to something that you hear Coach K say all the time, and it's next play. It's simple just because I think even before I heard it, that's kind of how it was with the way, I went through life growing up. Because, I mean, from 5 till I moved to Slidell, and we had moved like 3 more. Like, I lived in 25 different places from, 5 years old to, just moving, what we can afford, or trying to make it better, better, stuff like that. So, it was always the next play, right? Because you're at the next school, and then you're at playing with the next team, and you're playing with a new coach. And it was, so, I think going there and then kind of really understanding the next play, philosophy that coach had. It's just kind of something that I live by. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. You live in the moment, basically. You just live in the moment, enjoy what you're doing, and then when it's done, look forward to what's coming up next. And if it was a bad thing, learn from it real quickly and understanding you have another opportunity to make a difference the next, opportunity that comes. So, that's kind of what I've kind of lived my life after, uh, you know, being with Coach K, and I'm really understanding what that means, that it doesn't have to be just a basketball term. It could be kind of a life term, because, there's going to be ups and downs and good decisions and bad decisions and good consequences and bad consequences. And the way you handle and the mindset you go into next day or next opportunity determines if that's going to be a spiral or you're going to move on, learn from it, and kind of regain your balance and, start moving in the right direction that you need to move in.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it's arguably my main philosophy as well.
Yes,
I just
very
such
simple.
a great, it's so simple, and it's such great advice just to not, because you can't change your past, but you can learn from it and try to make the next play better.
Yep.
Simple as that. So lastly, you've won titles, you've set records, you're the all-time leader in steals still to this day at Duke. You're second in assists, and built a life around the game of basketball. So sitting here today, in any way of the phrase, whether it's with basketball and family, whatever, does Chris Duhon still got it?
Oh yes, yeah. I let these high school kids know every single time they challenge me. Like, my goal with my son, he's not going to beat me 1-on-1 until I'm 50. Yeah, that's the
right.
goal.
Keep him in
So,
his place.
I'm not in, slap the floor shape, that I was in, but, mentally, especially with me still being around the game, I think the game way quicker than they think the game. So, basketball wise, yeah, there's none of these high school kids can beat me. Family life. I mean, I'm just happy with the growth that I've been able to make. Having 5 kids, and with my wife. Marriage is tough, and you got to fight for it. And our ups and downs, and just especially when you're in different places in life, and things like that. So us being able to be where we're at right now, and having 5 healthy kids that are striving and, figuring out who they want to be, and us being a part of that together. I mean, Chris is doing good so far, and I'm enjoying where I'm at.
That's all you could want. Well, he's won a national title, played 10 years in the league, and now he's crushing it while on the sidelines down in Charlotte. So thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking with you sometime in the future.
Yep, I'll see you soon.
Yep, I will.
Yeah.
All right.
But thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.